The sprawling Nexus station floated like a glittering jewel in the velvet expanse of space. It was the kind of place where treaties were forged, alliances were strengthened, and secrets were traded like currency. Captain Daniel Hayes, a Terran explorer known for his daring missions and disarming charm, stood at the edge of the grand observation deck, sipping a glass of synthetic wine. Around him, a crowd of diplomats, soldiers, and traders from dozens of species mingled in a cacophony of languages and gestures. Daniel had always found these summits both fascinating and exhausting. Humanity had only recently earned a seat among the galactic powers, and the Terran delegation still felt like the new kids on the block. Tonight, however, they were here to celebrate, a symbolic step toward deeper cooperation with the Illithar Collective, a coalition of highly advanced species. Captain Hayes, enjoying yourself? Ambassador Ling Tran, a sharp-eyed woman with a knack for negotiation, appeared at his side. Hardly, Daniel replied with a wry smile. I'd rather be dodging asteroids than schmoozing with politicians. Lin chuckled. Well, try to stay charming. The Illithar have a flair for dramatic gestures, and I hear they prepared something special for this gathering. Daniel raised an eyebrow, but didn't have time to respond. A sudden hush fell over the room as a group of Illithians entered. They were tall, luminous beings with shimmering skin that seemed to reflect the starlight outside. At their center was a figure who immediately captured everyone's attention. Alariel. She was breathtaking, even by Illithian standards. Her silver hair flowed like liquid light, and her golden eyes seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality. Draped in an elegant robe that sparkled like the cosmos, she moved with the confidence of someone who knew the universe itself bent to her will. Daniel felt a faint chill run down his spine as her gaze locked onto him. It wasn't admiration. It was something far more intense, as if she had already decided his fate. Captain Hayes, Lynn murmured, I think you're about to be part of that, something special. Alariel stepped forward, her voice resonating like a melody woven with power. Honored guests of the Nexus, I greet you on behalf of the Illithar Collective. Tonight, we celebrate not only unity but also destiny. Her eyes never left Daniel as she spoke, and it is destiny that brings me to this moment. The room buzzed with curiosity as Alariel extended her hand toward Daniel. Captain Daniel Hayes of Terra, I have chosen you as my bondmate. A stunned silence fell over the gathering. Daniel blinked, sure he had misheard her. Bondmate. He echoed, his voice tinged with disbelief. Lynn elbowed him sharply, hissing under her breath. That's their word for spouse, Captain. The crowd erupted into murmurs, some astonished, others amused. The Illithians themselves seemed unbothered by the dramatic announcement, as if this were perfectly normal. Alariel tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Yes, Captain. Our traditions allow us to form alliances through chosen bonds. I have selected you, not just for your achievements, but because you represent the strength and resilience of humanity. Together, we could shape a future that benefits both our peoples. Daniel forced a laugh, trying to mask his growing discomfort. I appreciate the sentiment, Lady Alariel, but I don't think humans work that way. We're not really into sudden proposals. Alariel's smile was as radiant as it was unyielding. I did not say this was a proposal, Captain. It is a declaration. The murmurs grew louder, a mix of shock and amusement rippling through the room. Daniel glanced at Lynn, who looked like she wanted to vanish into thin air. Lady Alariel, Daniel said carefully, I'm flattered, truly. But I think you might be underestimating how stubborn humans can be about personal choices. Alariel's golden eyes gleamed. And you may underestimate the Starborn, Captain. We are patient, but we are not accustomed to refusal. The tension in the air was almost tangible. Daniel realized he was in a precarious position, not just for himself, but for humanity's fragile relationship with the Illithar. Before he could respond, Alariel turned to address the crowd once more. I believe the captain will come to understand the importance of this union. For now, let us continue the celebration. With that, she swept away, leaving Daniel standing there with 100 pairs of eyes trained on him. Lynn leaned in, her voice low and urgent. "Well, Captain, congratulations. You just got engaged to a Starborn diplomat." Daniel sighed, draining the rest of his drink. This is going to be a long night. The soft hum of the station's artificial atmosphere provided a faint backdrop to the storm brewing in Captain Daniel Hayes' mind. After the stunning declaration from Illyriel during the Grand Summit, the night had devolved into a blur of polite conversations, probing questions, and more than a few chuckles from amused onlookers. Now, Daniel found himself in his private quarters, sitting on the edge of his bunk and staring at the ceiling as if it held the answers to his predicament. "You've gotten yourself into some interesting situations, Hayes," he muttered. "But this is a whole new level." Before he could dwell on it further, the soft chime signaled a visitor at his door. He frowned, half hoping it was a mistake. But when the door slid open, there she was, Illyriel, standing like a goddess framed by the metallic threshold. "Captain Hayes," she said, her voice carrying a melody that seemed to defy the harshness of the station's steel walls. "May I come in?" Daniel hesitated, but he knew refusing her wasn't an option. "Sure. Make yourself comfortable, I guess." Illyriel stepped inside, her presence instantly making the small quarters feel even smaller. She glanced around briefly, her expression unreadable. Spartan, but efficient, typical of human quarters. "Yeah, we like to keep things simple," Daniel replied, crossing his arms. "Now what can I do for you, Lady Illyriel? Another grand announcement, or is this more of a private discussion?" Illyriel's golden eyes studied him, her gaze both curious and calculating. "I thought it would be wise to speak with you directly. I understand my declaration earlier was unexpected." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Unexpected? Try shocking. You can't just announce a bondmate like that without asking first. Humans aren't big fans of being volunteered for things like marriage." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Marriage is a word too small to encompass what I propose. This bond is more than a mere union. It is a partnership of two worlds, a bridge between two species. Surely you understand the importance of this moment." Daniel let out a sharp breath, pacing the room. "I understand diplomacy, Lady Illyriel. But what you're asking, it's personal. You're treating it like it's just politics. But for humans, it doesn't work that way." For the first time, a flicker of something softer crossed Illyriel's face. "You think this is not personal for me?" she asked, her voice quieter. "Do you believe I made this decision lightly, Captain Hayes? My choice was not born of impulse. It was a calculated step, yes, but also a deeply considered one." Daniel stopped pacing and looked at her. "Then help me understand. Why me? Out of all the people in the galaxy, why pick a stubborn, ordinary human like me?" Illyriel's gaze didn't waver. "You are far from ordinary. Your record speaks of courage, ingenuity, and a resilience that is rare even among your kind. Humans are a rising force in the galaxy, unpredictable yet capable of greatness. And you, Captain Hayes, embody that potential." Her words were meant to be flattering, but they only made Daniel more uneasy. He could see her conviction, but there was something else, something deeper she wasn't saying. "Look," he said, softening his tone, "I get that this is important to you, but you have to understand. This isn't just about me, my people, my culture. We value choice. Forcing someone into something like this, even for a good cause, doesn't sit well with us." Illyriel took a step closer, her expression earnest. "And what if I offered you a choice? A challenge, if you will. In Starborn tradition, a bond can be declined if the chosen one completes the ordeal of resolve. It is a series of trials designed to prove one's strength and character. If you succeed, the bond will be dissolved, and no dishonor will fall upon either of us." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "You're serious? Trials?" "I am." Her tone was firm. "But be warned, the ordeal is not for the faint of heart. Many have failed, and few have dared to attempt it. A part of Daniel wanted to laugh at the absurdity of the situation, but another part, the part that loved a challenge, couldn't resist the spark of intrigue. "All right, I'll bite. What happens if I fail?" Alariel's smile returned, but this time it carried a hint of mischief. "Then you will fulfill your role as my bondmate, and humanity will gain a place of honor within the Illithar collective. Either way, Captain Hayes, this will be a story worth telling." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, a mix of frustration and curiosity swirling in his mind. "Fine. I'll take your challenge. But don't expect me to make this easy for you." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Alariel said, her golden eyes gleaming. As she turned to leave, Daniel couldn't help but wonder if he'd just made the best or worst decision of his life. Either way, he was in for one hell of a ride. The days following Alariel's challenge passed in a blur. Captain Daniel Hayes found himself lost in a whirlwind of preparations, research, and increasingly strange training sessions designed by his enigmatic Illithian counterpart. The trials of the ordeal of resolve weren't just physical. They tested his mental agility, emotional endurance, and understanding of galactic diplomacy. Each step seemed to take him further into the complexities of Illithar culture, a world unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Daniel sat in his small cabin aboard the Nexus Horizon, poring over stacks of data retrieved from both Starborn archives and human records. His AI companion, Cora, offered a steady stream of insights, translating alien customs and philosophies into more digestible terms. "What do we know about the Illithar's bond traditions, Cora?" Daniel asked, rubbing his temples. Cora's voice chimed softly in his mind. "The Illithar are a species deeply connected to their history. Their bonds are less about personal attachment and more about power dynamics, alliances that influence galactic stability. To them, a successful bond elevates the collective." "That doesn't make it any easier," Daniel muttered. Cora responded calmly. "Humanity's individuality makes such traditions harder to navigate, but not impossible. You are resilient, Captain. You've overcome more difficult situations." Daniel nodded. "I guess that's what keeps me going, even when the odds are stacked against me." The next day, Alariel summoned him for the first trial, a mental challenge set in a simulated star system modeled after ancient Illithian war tactics. The simulation was vivid, combining holographic imagery with immersive sensory data that placed Daniel inside the heart of a galactic crisis. His task was simple: to solve the crisis and bring stability to the system without losing sight of humanity's values. As Daniel delved deeper into the intricacies of political maneuvering, military strategy, and resource management, he began to understand the complex interplay that governed Illithar society. Despite his best efforts, the trial proved to be far more challenging than anticipated. Every decision he made was scrutinized by Alariel, who guided the simulation with precision, her insights sharp and unyielding. "You underestimate the need for subtlety," she said after one failed attempt. "A true Starborn would have seen the consequences of such boldness." Daniel sighed, frustrated but not defeated. "Subtlety? In the middle of a crisis? That's not exactly my strong suit." "Your strength lies in your ability to adapt, Captain," Alariel replied softly. "But even adaptation requires understanding. You cannot simply rely on instinct. You must comprehend the stakes." After countless simulations and strategic meetings, Daniel managed to bring stability to the simulated system on his fourth attempt. Alariel watched with a glimmer of approval in her eyes, but no hint of emotional praise crossed her features. "Well done," she said simply. "But the journey is far from over." The second trial was a personal one, a test of character. Alariel transported Daniel to a serene, artificial forest crafted to simulate the lush landscapes of ancient Illithar homelands. Here they discussed deeper matters, human beliefs, values, and the moral dilemmas Daniel often faced as a leader. "You cannot solve every problem with logic alone," Alariel mused as they sat beneath a towering crystalline tree. "Illithar balance heart and mind equally. We believe in harmony, not simply the pursuit of knowledge. Daniel stared at her, his brow furrowed. That's difficult to understand. Humans have fought wars for ideals. Sometimes, emotions drive us to act, even when it's not the most rational choice. Yes, Alariel agreed, her gaze steady. But in your ordeal, you must find a balance between both. The conversation lingered in Daniel's mind long after the trial ended. He realized that while he had seen glimpses of Elithian culture, understanding it required more than just intellectual effort. It required empathy. The final trial loomed ahead, a challenge where Daniel would face a test not just of skill, but of trust. He would be forced to lead a joint human-Elithian expedition into uncharted territory, a mission fraught with risks that threatened both peace and personal safety. "I'll rise to the challenge," Daniel told Cora as they prepared for the next step, "even if it means walking into the unknown." Cora's response was soft yet confident. "I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Captain." As he stared at the star charts and mission logs, Daniel felt a flicker of determination. The trials may have pushed him to his limits, but they were also forging something deeper, an understanding of both himself and the people who held the future of humanity in their hands. The Nexus horizon glided smoothly through the vast darkness of space, a hub of activity and preparation for the next stage of Daniel Hayes' trials. Captain Daniel had spent the last few weeks immersed in Elithar traditions, learning more than he ever thought possible about diplomacy, culture, and the subtle intricacies of interstellar cooperation. Yet, despite his growing understanding, the next challenge loomed large. A challenge designed to test his mettle in a way he had never anticipated. The first trial had been a test of strategy and intellect, the second a challenge of character and emotion. Now, the third trial was unlike anything Daniel had faced before. "Captain Hayes," Alariel's voice echoed through the sterile halls of the ship as she summoned him to the training area. "It is time for the third trial. Are you prepared?" Daniel exhaled slowly, his breath steady despite the rising tension. "As prepared as I'll ever be, I suppose." The training area was a vast, shimmering space that simulated an ancient Elithian arena, an open battlefield surrounded by ethereal, translucent walls that pulsed with power. Here, he would face a test that required not just his skills, but his ability to command and inspire those around him. Standing before him were a group of Starborn warriors trained in Elithian combat and guided by ancient traditions. They weren't ordinary soldiers. Their movements were fluid, their weapons crafted from materials that could bend energy itself. They radiated power, but beneath it was an unsettling calm, a confidence born from centuries of preparation. Daniel clenched his fists, eyeing them carefully. "I don't suppose I'm just here for a sparring match." "No," Alariel replied smoothly, her voice calm but sharp. "This is more than combat. It is about leading in a moment of crisis. You will command a team, human and Elithian alike, and face an enemy that seeks to destabilize the harmony we have worked so hard to build." Daniel scanned the faces of his companions, humans, Elithians, and a few other species, a diverse team with varied skill sets. The Starborn warriors stood silently at the rear, watching him like a hawk assessing prey. "Your first task," Alariel continued, "is to rally this team, to make them believe in your vision. You must inspire them to act not as individuals, but as one force. Only through unity will you succeed." Daniel grunted, moving toward the center of the battlefield. "Fine. Let's get started." The simulated enemy appeared on the horizon, an alliance of rogue factions, bent on tearing the fragile alliances apart. Their approach was relentless, and their tactics brutal. Daniel's team moved quickly into position, but the true test was how well they could work together. Daniel barked orders, rallying the humans to defend key positions while the Elithians unleashed their energy-based defenses. There were moments of chaos, where individual instincts threatened to override the collective strategy. However, Daniel maintained his composure, adapting to each shift in the battlefield with quick thinking and precise decisions. One of his human lieutenants faltered, hesitating as a wave of enemy forces surged toward them. Without missing a beat, Daniel moved to her side, his voice steady. "Focus. Trust your training and each other. You're stronger together." The lieutenant nodded, her hesitation replaced with resolve. Together, they fought back, pushing the enemy back through teamwork and sheer determination. Alariel observed from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. Every move Daniel made, every word spoken, was carefully examined. At one point, he faltered, his focus wavering as a dangerous breach threatened to undo their defense. "You must not let emotions cloud your judgment," Alariel called out. "Control is strength." Daniel tightened his jaw, regaining his composure. He ordered a tactical retreat, pulling his team to safer ground while regrouping. In moments like these, he realized that leadership was as much about recognizing when to act and when to step back. As the battle raged on, the tide turned. Under Daniel's guidance, his team began to coordinate their efforts seamlessly, their attacks and defenses harmonized. Each Illithium warrior, human soldier, and other species worked in synchronicity, driven by the shared goal of protecting their alliances. In the end, victory was theirs. The enemy forces were driven back, their morale shattered. Alariel approached Daniel once the battle had concluded. Her golden eyes glimmered with something akin to admiration, or at least approval. "Your command was impressive," she said softly. "You held your ground even when the odds were against you. You adapted and led with clarity." Daniel gave a small, tired smile. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about doing what's needed, even when the pressure's on. Wise words. Alariel nodded. "You have passed the third trial." The tension that had gripped Daniel eased slightly. He glanced back at his team, who were exhausted but victorious. One step at a time. Alariel's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer before she spoke again. "You've proven capable, Captain Hayes, but the final trial awaits. A challenge that will test everything you've learned." Daniel didn't need to ask what that trial would be. He had a feeling it would be unlike anything he had faced yet. The Nexus horizon drifted silently through the dark expanse of space, a steady hum of engines providing the only sound. Captain Daniel Hayes sat alone in the quiet of his quarters, staring at the stars beyond the window. The weight of the past trials hung heavily on his shoulders. He had faced battles of the mind, tested his character, and led his team through chaos. But the final trial awaited, and it loomed like an insurmountable challenge. Daniel knew the final test wasn't something he could prepare for with tactics or strategies alone. This trial would be personal, pushing him to the edge of his limits in ways he couldn't yet imagine. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, trying to steady his thoughts. "Cora," he said softly, his voice calm but firm. "Give me everything you've got on the final trial." Cora's voice replied instantly. "The final trial of the ordeal of resolve is a test of the soul, Captain. It will challenge not only your abilities but your very essence as a leader. You will face something far more intimate, something rooted in deep-seated fears and desires." Daniel sighed. "Sounds like fun." There was a pause before Cora responded again. "You've faced worse. You are strong, Captain." Before he could respond, a soft chime signaled a message from Alariel. Daniel took a deep breath and opened the transmission. The screen flickered to life, revealing her radiant, otherworldly form. "Captain Hayes," Alariel began, her voice serene yet commanding. "The time has come for the final trial. Are you ready?" Daniel gave a weary nod. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good," Alariel said with a slight smile. "This trial will test your understanding of unity and sacrifice. You will face an illusion, a scenario tailored to challenge the very foundation of your beliefs. Only by seeing through the illusion can you emerge victorious." Daniel's brow furrowed. "An illusion?" "Yes," her gaze was steady. "You must navigate this challenge without being consumed by what you perceive to be real." The transmission ended, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts once more. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. The Starborn had a way of weaving experiences that were both vivid and disturbing, and an illusion designed to challenge the soul was bound to push him beyond his limits. The next few hours felt like days. The Nexus horizon plunged into darkness, and the hum of the engines faded into silence. Daniel sat still, meditating, clearing his mind in preparation for what was to come. When the moment arrived, he found himself standing in an unfamiliar place, an alien world that seemed alive with beauty and danger. The air was thick, pulsing with energy that shimmered with vibrant colors. Around him, visions flickered, memories, doubts, and desires interwoven into an elaborate tapestry of emotions. Daniel felt the weight of the illusion pressing down on him. His instincts screamed at him to make sense of it, to control it. But Alariel's warning echoed in his mind. Don't be consumed by what you perceive to be real. He moved cautiously, his steps deliberate as he navigated the shifting landscape. Visions of loved ones, moments of triumph, and past failures flickered like ghosts at the edges of his consciousness. The boundaries between reality and illusion blurred, and Daniel fought to maintain his sense of self. Focus, he whispered to himself. Stay grounded. Everywhere he turned, another illusion greeted him. An idealized version of himself, a distorted past where his choices were stripped of consequence, and worst of all, an image of Alariel offering a different path, one where humanity embraced unity at the cost of individuality. No, Daniel said firmly. That's not who we are. That's not what we stand for. With each step, he pushed through the illusions, his will steadfast against the tide of confusion and doubt. The landscape began to shift once more, growing darker, more chaotic. Yet Daniel pressed on, his mind sharp and clear. Your will is unbreakable. Alariel's voice echoed in his thoughts. But you must remember, strength alone is not enough. At last, the illusion cracked. Daniel stood on a precipice, the world around him dissolving into starlight. The weight lifted from his shoulders, and he felt a strange sense of peace. You've done it, Alariel said, materializing before him. Her eyes held a newfound respect. You have passed the final trial, Captain Hayes. Daniel breathed deeply, his chest rising and falling slowly. I had to, he said softly, for humanity, and for what we stand for. Alariel inclined her head, her expression serene. You've proven your resolve, Captain. The bond between us is not forced, it is chosen. The room fell into silence once more. Daniel felt the enormity of what had just occurred, the challenges, the lessons, and the bonds forged through trial and trust. I'll make sure humanity never forgets this, Daniel said, his voice steady and sure. Alariel smiled, a soft, genuine expression gracing her otherworldly features. Together, we will shape a future where understanding and unity prevail. And with that, the Nexus horizon began its course toward new horizons, where humanity's destiny awaited beyond the stars. The Nexus horizon glided through the stars, its journey steady and purposeful as Captain Daniel Hayes reflected on the trials he had faced and the path ahead. The final trial had been a test of heart and soul, a journey into the depths of illusion and clarity. Now he found himself not only as a leader but as a part of something larger, a bond forged through understanding and respect with the Starborn Ilithians. Daniel sat in the ship's command center, Cora by his side, monitoring the ever-changing data streams from the various species that made up the newly formed alliance. The alliance between humans and Ilithians, along with a few other chosen species, was fragile but promising. Trust had been built, albeit through conflict and trials, and Daniel was committed to ensuring it held strong. This is only the beginning, Daniel said softly, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. We've established something new, but maintaining it will be the challenge. Cora's soothing voice echoed in his mind. You have the will to lead, Captain. The Alliance trusts your judgment. Together, we'll navigate this uncharted territory. As the ship continued its course toward the heart of the new alliance's territory, Daniel reviewed the reports coming in from various diplomatic meetings between humans and Ilithians. Alariel had worked tirelessly to foster cooperation, and though some resistance still lingered, progress was undeniable. However, peace was fragile, and every decision needed careful consideration. A knock at the door brought Daniel out of his thoughts. Alariel entered, her presence commanding yet calm. "How are you holding up, Captain?" she asked, her voice steady. Daniel offered a small smile. "As well as can be expected. It's a lot to manage, but it's worth it." Alariel's gaze softened, though the sharp intelligence behind her eyes never wavered. "The alliance will be tested. Old conflicts never truly disappear, but this unity offers a chance for lasting peace." Daniel nodded. "I understand that, and I'll do everything in my power to ensure it." Their conversation was interrupted by a message from one of the Alliance representatives, a coalition of smaller species looking to join the Alliance. Daniel activated the transmission, and a holographic figure appeared, a humanoid creature with shimmering bioluminescent skin. "Captain Hayes," the creature's voice resonated calmly, "we seek to unite with your Alliance. Our people, though different, share your vision of peace." Daniel studied the figure for a moment before replying. "Welcome to the Alliance. Your addition strengthens us." The representative inclined its head, a gesture of respect. "We offer our knowledge and harmony. Together, we will protect what we've built." The meeting concluded smoothly, and Daniel leaned back in his chair, the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Alliances like this one were rare, built not on dominance, but on mutual understanding and shared goals. Still, the complexities of governance stretched far beyond diplomacy, requiring patience, adaptability, and a deep commitment to unity. Later that day, Alariel joined Daniel again for a deeper discussion about the future. They stood in a quiet corner of the Nexus horizon, observing the stars together. "You've done well," Alariel said softly. "But challenges are bound to arise. Not every species will share the same vision." Daniel's brow furrowed. "I expected that, but if we lose our path, even for a moment, the entire alliance could unravel." "Precisely." Alariel's voice held a trace of concern. "You must be vigilant, Captain. The trials are over, but the true work begins." They discussed potential obstacles, territorial disputes, differing cultural values, and the challenge of maintaining peace across species with varying histories. Daniel appreciated Alariel's insights, which were both pragmatic and wise. Together, they created strategies to address potential issues before they could grow into conflicts. In the following weeks, the alliance began to flourish. Trade routes were established, cultural exchanges took place, and human and Ilithian diplomats worked tirelessly to create a shared governance system. Daniel oversaw every step, ensuring that every decision reflected the values of unity and mutual respect. Still, tensions occasionally flared. Small disagreements over territory, misunderstandings about traditions, and miscommunications arose. But Daniel's ability to mediate and Alariel's guidance kept the alliance intact. One evening, as Daniel reviewed the latest reports, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The path ahead was uncertain, but the foundation of the alliance was strong. The stars seemed a little brighter now, and the possibilities endless. "You've done well," Cora said gently. "The future is ours to shape." Daniel smiled. Together. Alariel's final message came a few days later, a reminder of the commitment they had made, not just to peace, but to something greater, a unified future for humanity and the stars beyond. With each passing day, that future became clearer, guided by the strength of understanding and the power of unity. The Nexus horizon soared through the vast, star-filled void, its destination clear, a peaceful future for humanity and its newfound allies. Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his command chair, gazing out at the ever-changing tapestry of stars beyond the viewport. The journey had been long and arduous, but the final chapter of their shared journey was now in sight. The alliance he had helped forge was no longer fragile. It had become something more, something enduring. Humans, Ilithians, and other species had found common ground, united not by conquest, but by understanding and shared purpose. Still, there were challenges ahead, and Daniel knew that peace could never be taken for granted. Captain Hayes, Cora's voice chimed in, her presence calm and reassuring. We are nearing the central hub of the Alliance. All systems are prepared for diplomatic discussions. Daniel nodded, giving a small smile. Thank you, Cora. Let's make sure everything is in order. The Nexus horizon descended slowly into the hub's atmosphere, an immense, shimmering station at the heart of the Alliance's territory. It was a beacon of collaboration, a testament to what could be achieved when different species worked together. Representatives from various races gathered in anticipation, their eyes bright with hope and expectation. Daniel stood on the bridge, his gaze steady as he observed the bustling activity. His leadership had been tested in ways he never thought possible, and yet here they were, on the brink of something monumental. The Ilithian delegation arrived first, led by Alariel. Her radiant form seemed to glow as she stepped forward, her golden eyes taking in the gathered leaders with a calm yet commanding presence. The Starborn warriors who had once been Daniel's adversaries now stood alongside him as allies, their unity forged in the crucible of trials. Captain Hayes, Alariel said with a gentle nod, the time has come for us to solidify our future. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady and confident. Indeed, together, we've built something stronger than we ever imagined. The other representatives from various species echoed his sentiments. Their discussions focused on forming a more formal governance structure, a council that would ensure peace, trade, and cooperation across the Alliance. Every species, regardless of differences, would have a voice. Throughout the meeting, Daniel listened carefully, offering his thoughts when necessary but ensuring that every perspective was heard. It was a delicate balance, but one he had grown adept at maintaining. We must ensure that no species is left behind, Daniel said during a break. Our strength lies in our diversity, but we must also be vigilant against those who seek to disrupt our unity. Alariel's voice was soft but firm. You've done well to guide us this far, Captain. But the true challenge lies in sustaining this harmony. As discussions progressed, a representative from one of the smaller species raised concerns about past conflicts, a deep-rooted rivalry with a neighboring race. The tension in the room grew palpable as accusations flew. Daniel stepped in, his voice calm but firm. History cannot define our future, he said. We must address these concerns with understanding and mutual respect. Anger may be justified, but it only clouds our path forward. The room fell silent as Daniel's words sank in. Slowly, representatives began to speak, offering solutions rooted in dialogue rather than division. Gradually, the atmosphere shifted from contention to collaboration. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the council agreed on a framework, a blueprint for lasting peace. It was a monumental step, one that Daniel knew would require ongoing effort, but it was a step in the right direction. Later, as the council closed its first session, Alariel approached Daniel once more. Her expression was serene, but her eyes glimmered with something deeper. You've become more than just a leader, she said softly. You've become a part of something timeless. Daniel smiled. We've built something worth protecting. Their gaze lingered on one another for a moment, a silent understanding passing between them. The bond they shared, formed through trials and respect, would endure, guiding them through whatever challenges the future held. Back on the Nexus horizon, Daniel reflected on the journey they had taken. The stars outside the viewport seemed brighter than ever, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The Alliance was not just a collection of species, it was a new chapter in history, a legacy of unity, understanding, and hope. We're just getting started, Daniel said quietly, his voice a vow to the future. And with that, the ship drifted forward into a new dawn, where humanity's destiny was forever intertwined with the stars.